We all know this melody. It's universally recognized as the Moonlight Sonata. Picture a dark room, silver light washing over the keys. It feels like a lullaby. But Beethoven never called it that. The title was dreamed up by music critic Ludwig Rellstab 5 years after the composer's death. Rellstab claimed the first movement reminded him of a boat floating across Lake Lucerne in the moonlight. The folklore grew from there. By the 1920s, a popular Yiddish children's tale claimed, Beethoven improvised the piece by moonlight for a blind orphan girl and her brother. The historical reality of 1801 was much darker. Beethoven was in his late 20s, suffering from a physical decline that included a tormenting, incessant buzzing in his ears. To compound his physical suffering, he was in love with his 16-year-old piano pupil, Countess Giulietta Guicciardi. He proposed, but her father blocked the marriage because Beethoven lacked noble rank. Plunged into despair and facing the prospect of total deafness, he sat down and engineered a rebellion against the strict musical norms of his era. Classical sonatas followed a rigid formula, a fast first movement, a slow second, and a fast finale. Beethoven shattered that mold. He opened Opus 27, No. 2, with an agonizingly slow adagio sostenuto, inverting the geometry into a slow, fast, and faster progression. The rebellion goes deeper than tempo. Composers use specific notations to convey intent. Here, in measure 32, we see a downward leap, saltus duriusculus. In that same measure, he uses abruptio. Instead of resolving, the melody line breaks off, rupturing the voice leading. By embedding these rhetorical breaks and ruptures, Beethoven mapped his own internal crisis directly onto the mathematical grid of the sonata. To execute this shift in tone, Beethoven pushed the physical machinery of the piano to its limits. Across the top of the score, he wrote a repetitive instruction, senza sordini, meaning without mutes. He was commanding the performer to hold the piano's sustain pedal down for the entirety of the movement. The dampers were never to touch the strings. On an 18th century forte piano, that command actually works. The wooden frame and strings produced a short resonance, creating a ghostly aura rather than a blur. This diagram compares the two instruments. If you try to follow those literal instructions on a modern piano, you get a muddy mess. Modern strings are under much higher tension and have a significantly longer decay, causing the overlapping sound waves to clash. To recreate that 1801 acoustic effect today, pianists use a technique called fractional pedaling. They ride the pedal up and down by tiny margins, sometimes just a fraction of a millimeter, to temper the resonance without ever fully clearing it. Beethoven composed for the specific mechanical tolerances of the machinery in front of him, engineering a physical resonance effect. Which brings us to a paradox. By 1801, Beethoven's hearing was failing rapidly. He could not physically perceive the delicate, sustained acoustic effects he demanded from the instrument. He relied on aggressive physical workarounds, using metallic devices like this ear trumpet to channel sound waves directly into his failing ear canals. Eventually, he resorted to leaning his body against the piano frame to feel the raw, kinetic vibrations traveling through the wood and into his bones. This animation visualizes his greatest tool, his inner ear. Because he wasn't born deaf, his brain contained a database of remembered frequencies. He could mentally simulate the exact pitch and decay of sounds he could no longer physically perceive in the room. As the physical world grew silent, his compositional process moved out of the acoustic air and into the neurological space of his own mind. Today, we often view deafness strictly through a medical lens, diagnosing it as a biological deficit or a mutation. But losing his hearing did not sever Beethoven's connection to the world. It forced that connection to shift mediums, moving away from airborne acoustics and into physical vibration and structural logic. This physical constraint provoked a structural and engineering leap that a healthy composer might never have attempted. The result is a work engineered to be felt in the hands, seen on the page, and constructed entirely in the dark.